39,000 public service workers who were still on strike are heading back to their jobs today. The Union for Employees at the Canada Revenue Agency says they have a tentative deal.
Some relief this morning for people anxious about their tax returns. After more than 2 weeks, the CRA strike has come to an end. Hey, I'm Lauren Burden for Andrew Chang. This morning's CRA deal looks a lot like Monday's PSAC deal. A 12% raise over 4 years, and a one-time lump sum payment of $2,500. But one difference between Monday's deal for 120,000 Treasury Board workers and 35,000 CRA workers? Language on telework. The CRA deal says that remote work requests will be assessed individually and subject to union grievances. Language that was missing from Monday's deal.
It's been a long 2 weeks for folks to be on the picket line. So we're very proud of our members. They worked very hard during the pandemic to help the government to deliver not only the tax programs and the CRA, but the emergency benefits. And they deserve to get a good contract. And so finally, we can say that we get a decent contract for our members, and they deserve it.
Now, just yesterday, the sticking points still at the table: wages, telework, and job security against contracting out positions. So pretty significant stuff. But hey, all is sorted, right? Those 150,000 workers are back at their jobs. Contracts are settled for the next 4 years. Canadians can get their passports, their ATIP requests, and now their tax returns in a timely manner. And yet, here we are. After weeks of negotiating and 2 deals, what we don't know and likely won't ever know is what happened at the bargaining table.
Well, I mean, again, we've compromised. I'm not going to say exactly where we're at or where each side is at.
The reason we don't know more is because these talks are always private. This is normal, and we don't have much choice but to just wait for the final deal. But how did it all play out, and what happened at the table? Well, here's the next best thing.
Hi, I'm George Florusco. I was a national vice president for the Canadian Union of Postal Workers for 17 years. And during that time, I was the chief negotiator in negotiations with Canada Post.
I'm Michael Wernick in Ottawa. I am a part-time professor at the University of Ottawa in public sector management. Unlike a lot of other academics, I was a senior executive in the federal public service for over 20 years and ended my career as the top public servant, the clerk of the Privy Council.
2 experts with real insight into significant Canadian labor conflicts, with a look at the who, what, where of negotiations and how deals get done.
It can vary between 3 to 7 people on each side, depending on what issues being discussed. Sometimes there's subcommittees set up to deal with items where it doesn't require a large number of people. The more people you generally have at a bargaining table, the more difficult it could become because you get so many different opinions then being put forward.
The model in Canada is that there's one team for the Government of Canada that negotiates with all of the more than 20 unions across the public service. And each of the unions has their own negotiating team of specialist negotiators on their behalf.
The strength of the bargaining committee for the union is the membership and nothing else. The employer has tremendous advantages in any round of bargaining because they control the money. And there's no doubt that that has a lot of influence on the workers because people want to keep their job and they want to have better working conditions. Before you go into any meeting, you have a preliminary discussion over the phone or maybe with just the chief negotiators talking about what issues will be dealt with that day. You never want to go into a meeting where you have just an open discussion because those meetings will just tend to be talk fests and it won't resolve anything. So you need specific items to deal with. Well, generally we come to the table with a set of proposals that we're going to deal with that day or issues that we're going to deal with that day and try to hammer out or try to explain to each other why we're coming forward with these issues and what we see as a solution to the problem in the workplace. Then it proceeds to dissect it and to try and get an understanding about where each side is coming from. That can be a difficult process because there's quite often very different views on the solutions to the problem, or even if there is a problem. Meetings can go around the clock. When you're getting down to trying to get a final deal, we had meetings during the day, during the evening, during the middle of the night. Time doesn't really matter then. You want to get a deal for the membership, and you have to be willing to take any steps you can to get that deal.
In any walk of life, conversations that are private are different than those that are in the public arena. You're not going to have a discussion with your spouse or partner in an open restaurant, that's the same as you might have, in private. And what people say, in the privacy of the negotiating room, or even in the side corridors, is going to be different than what they would say in front of the cameras.
Making progress, when there's no progress being made, doesn't necessarily mean that nothing's happened. What it means is that they have been able to reach a solution, and that they may have had some important discussions. They may have been able to exchange some information and talk about this, but they also may have been able to impress on the other side that this issue is not going to go away.
Both sides will be trying to keep an eye and test the winds and see where that level of frustration, barometer is, because as it rises, then we slide closer to back to work legislation.
They can get very heated. And I know I've been in meetings where voices get raised and people do not hold back on their feelings. And that's just the nature of dealing with these very tough issues.
There's pressure on the union because people are going without pay, which is going to become an increasing hardship. And there's pressure on the government because the interruption of services is going to cause frustration levels among Canadians to rise. Whatever settlement is reached, whether it's about the wages or about workplace rules, will become a template or precedent for other bargaining tables. The federal government has to negotiate with about 20 other unions, so there's an issue about sort of patterns in bargaining. And of course, there's a cost to the bottom line for the federal government.
A lot of these changes and these solutions have impacts for many, many years to come. And it's important to get it right at the time that you're negotiating, because if you simply kick the can down the road, you're just creating a problem for future workers.
The wage issues will be much more closely watched by other public servants. And it also sets a pattern for negotiations that are coming up for every provincial, territorial, and municipal government in Canada, and even for some of the private sector bargaining as well.
So there you have it. Not quite a peek behind the curtain, but it's as close as we're going to get.